for holding this important hearing today, and to all of the witnesses for being here on this critical subject on disproportional impacts on frontline communities of color and low-income families. In Michigan, we've been particularly hit hard. We're fourth in the number of deaths in the country. We have nearly 2 million unemployed, and lives have been forever changed. And what's most troubling is that African Americans make up 40% of the COVID deaths in Michigan, and they're only 14% of the population. For too long, these communities have had to bear the brunt of the burden during the worst of times. And as people are bravely marching peacefully against injustice across this country, we have to renew our fight for greater environmental justice. Every bill that Congress considers now must take these issues into account. But today I want to focus my questions on access to clean drinking water. I thank Chairman Tonko for recognizing the issue at the very beginning of this, its affordability, and why it is so important for environmental justice communities during a pandemic. But I worry about it when we're done too, because I believe that water is a basic human right. Because COVID didn't create a water crisis, it exacerbated the existing one. Mr. Hawkins, I love you, even though you're from Ohio State or from Ohio, but I'm going to, hey, we got to keep a little sports humor in all of this, or we're going to, I miss sports. But I want to address my questions to Mr. Ali and Ms. Patterson. According to the CDC, one of the most effective ways to prevent the spread of COVID is to wash your hands for 20 seconds regularly with soap and water. But you can't do that if you don't have any running water. Access to clean water is a basic human right, and it's critical for hygiene and safety. I'd like to first start with you, Mr. O'Lally, but ask you to be short, and then Ms. Patterson. Could both of you give this community an overview of how COVID-19 has impacted the access to clean water in environmental justice communities? And would you tell us or highlight what we can do as a federal government as far as things stand today for water shutoffs nationally? And what do we need to do to make sure it continues to flow?
Well, the first thing we need to do is to make sure that we're strengthening our infrastructure and making sure that in the strengthening of the infrastructure that we are also making sure that our most vulnerable communities, as in relationship to the pricing of water, we need to make sure that there is actually equity that's a part of that process. We also have to make sure that with extend the moratorium on water shutoffs. There in Detroit and across the country, folks like Ms. Monica Patrick with We the People of Detroit and others have been working diligently to make sure that is brought to the attention of folks both in the State House and the Federal House. So we have to do that. We also got to make sure we're making investments in our natural infrastructure, which helps to clean water. And helps to take a burden off of many of the water filtration systems that are out there. So those are just a couple of things, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Patterson.
Ms. Patterson.
Thank you so much. Yes, so definitely echoing what Mr. Ali said, and just to add that we also need to make sure that we are pushing back against water privatization, and so that we don't have water systems that are run for profit, that we make sure that we have water systems that are meant to serve people and to uphold human rights. We definitely have to increase our investments, as Mr. Ali said, in water infrastructure, so that we don't, because even now, one thing that was exacerbated by COVID-19 is that to the extent that there's some folks who don't trust their water and they have to access through water bottles and so forth. And so having to do that when you don't even have a grocery store nearby, and given the weight of water, and so people are in harm's way just trying to get water that they can drink because the water coming out of their pipes isn't safe. So we need to make sure that we don't have, especially as we know that by all accounts, the COVID-19 is going to resurge. It's still going on now, and we're going to have a resurgence of it. So we need to have permanent solutions and not just temporary moratoriums on water shutoffs, but no one should be deprived of the essential resource of water. And so definitely following in the footsteps, as Mr. Ali said, the folks of We the People of Detroit, to have a community governance structure around water systems is something that we should definitely institute. Thank you.
So I'm out of time, but I would like to thank the committee leadership because water is a basic human right, which is the bill that I introduced with my colleague, was included in the most recent bill passed by the House, the HEROES bill. And there are 15 million people in the United States that don't have running water or have had a water shut off. We all need to really think about that. 1 in 20 households in this country. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're most welcome. And the gentlelady yields back. I believe